The morning alarm chimed softly through their small apartment on level 7 of Crossroads Station. Kira's translucent blue skin shimmered as she stretched in bed, her gills fluttering gently in the humid air Sam kept perfectly balanced for her comfort. She watched her husband move quietly around their bedroom, gathering his work clothes and tool belt. "Another day fixing broken air filters?" Kira asked, her voice carrying the musical quality of her Nereid people. Sam smiled and kissed her forehead. "Someone's got to keep this old station breathing," he said in his soft way. "The primary recycler in Section C is making that noise again." Kira had been married to Sam for 3 years now, and she still marveled at how content he seemed with such simple work. Most humans who came to Crossroads were traders, diplomats, or corporate representatives chasing profit and glory. Sam fixed things. He grew vegetables in the hydroponics bay. He solved mechanical puzzles in his spare time. Her colleague Vera had visited last week and spent the entire evening questioning Kira's life choices. "You could have married Admiral Thex from the Centauri fleet," Vera had said, her own gills flashing with frustration. "Or that wealthy Martian shipping magnate who courted you for months. Instead you chose a human maintenance worker." Kira had defended Sam quietly, but the word stung because she couldn't fully explain her choice either. There was something about Sam that drew her, something deeper than his gentle hands or patient smile. Sometimes when he looked at the stars through their apartment window, she saw depths in his eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. After Sam left for work, Kira prepared for her own day at the diplomatic quarter. As a cultural liaison specialist, she helped resolve conflicts between the dozens of species that called Crossroads home. The work was important but predictable. Unlike Sam, she sometimes wondered if she was meant for something more. The morning brought a typical array of problems. A group of silicon-based rock men were upset about the mineral content in the station's structural walls. The feline Filari delegation was complaining about the temperature in their quarters. The insectoid hive kind wanted permission to modify their living spaces for better acoustic resonance. During lunch, Kira walked down to level 5 to visit Sam. She found him in the atmospheric processing center, his hands deep inside a complex filtration unit. His work clothes were stained with lubricant and coolant, but he hummed quietly as he worked. "How's your day?" she asked, settling onto a nearby crate. "Good," Sam said, not looking up from his work. "This whole system is fascinating, you know. It processes air for 17 different atmospheric requirements simultaneously. The engineering is brilliant." Kira watched him work. His movements were precise and confident. He seemed to understand the machinery intuitively, finding problems that other technicians had missed and solving them with elegant simplicity. She'd noticed this before. Sam could fix anything, regardless of what species had built it or how alien the technology seemed. "Sam," she said carefully, "did you study engineering before coming here?" His hands paused for just a moment. "I picked up things over the years," he said. "You learn what you need to learn." It was the same vague answer he always gave about his past. Sam spoke about his life before Crossroads the way some people talked about the weather, mentioning facts without emotion. He'd worked in logistics. He'd traveled a lot. He'd decided to settle down somewhere quiet. That afternoon, Kira returned to find her office buzzing with activity. Her assistant, a young human named Ben, was coordinating with multiple screens displaying news feeds from across the galaxy. "What's happening?" Kira asked. "Major crisis developing in the Kepler sector," Ben explained, his face grim. 3 separate colony worlds are under siege. Civilian populations are trapped. The attacking forces have blockaded all shipping lanes. Kira absorbed the information as reports continued streaming in. The Kepler sector was 12 days' travel from Crossroads, technically outside the jurisdiction of the Galactic Council but home to millions of peaceful colonists. The attacking force appeared to be a coalition of mercenary groups and radical separatists. "What's the Council's response?" she asked. Ben shook his head. "Emergency session is still ongoing, but preliminary reports suggest they're classifying it as an internal sector dispute. No intervention planned. Kira felt her gills flutter with distress. She'd visited Kepler twice on diplomatic missions. The colonists were simple people, farmers and miners who'd built peaceful communities far from the political centers of the galaxy. They had no military defenses worth mentioning. That evening, she found Sam in their apartment's small kitchen, preparing dinner with his usual methodical care. He'd changed from his work clothes into the simple gray shirt and comfortable pants he wore at home. His dark hair was slightly damp from the shower. "You look troubled," he observed, setting a plate of perfectly seasoned vegetables before her. Kira explained the Kepler situation while they ate. Sam listened without interruption, his expression growing more serious with each detail. When she finished, he sat quietly for a long moment, staring at his food. 40 million people, he said finally. Mostly civilians. "You know about Kepler?" Kira asked, surprised. "I read the reports sometimes," Sam said. "Terrible situation." Something in his tone made Kira study his face more carefully. Sam looked genuinely distressed, more emotional than she'd seen him in months. His hands gripped his utensils tightly. "The council won't help," Kira continued. "They say it's not their jurisdiction." Sam's jaw tensed. "The council," he said, and there was something sharp in his voice that Kira had never heard before. "They always have their jurisdictions and protocols." After dinner, Sam excused himself to work on one of his mechanical puzzles. These were intricate devices he built from scrap metal and electronic components, three-dimensional mazes that required complex sequences of moves to solve. Kira had never understood the appeal, but Sam found them relaxing. Tonight, however, he seemed agitated rather than calm. She watched from the couch as he manipulated the puzzle with swift, almost aggressive movements. His fingers moved with startling precision, solving configurations that usually took him hours in mere minutes. "Sam," she ventured. He looked up, seeming surprised to find her watching. "Sorry," he said, setting the puzzle aside. "My mind was elsewhere." Over the following days, the Kepler situation dominated station news feeds. Reports grew increasingly dire as the blockade tightened and supply lines were cut. The attacking forces had superior numbers and technology. Colonial defense militias were overwhelmed within hours. Kira noticed changes in Sam's behavior. He spent more time reading news reports, his face growing darker with each update. He worked longer hours, claiming equipment failures required his attention, but Kira suspected he was avoiding the constant media coverage that filled their apartment. On the fourth day of the crisis, she found him in the observation deck after his shift. This was a quiet area of the station where couples often came to watch ships arrive and depart. Sam stood alone at the large viewport, staring out at the stars. "The merchant vessel Prosperity launched emergency pods today," Kira said, joining him. 78 people managed to escape before their ship was destroyed. Sam's reflection in the viewport showed tight lines around his eyes. 78, he repeated. Out of 40 million. They stood in silence for several minutes. Ships moved past the viewport like distant fireflies, carrying cargo and passengers to safer destinations. None were heading toward Kepler. "I keep thinking," Sam said slowly, "about the children." Kira looked at him with surprise. Sam rarely spoke about children or families. They'd never seriously discussed having children themselves. In situations like this, Sam continued, the children are always the most vulnerable. They don't understand why their homes are burning. They don't know why their parents are afraid. His voice carried a weight that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. Kira realized that Sam wasn't speaking theoretically. Somehow, he knew what those children were experiencing. "Sam," she said carefully, "how do you know so much about these situations?" He turned from the viewport to face her. For a moment, his calm expression cracked, and she saw something raw and painful underneath. "I used to work in logistics," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. What kind of logistics? Sam was quiet for a long time. Ships continued to pass outside the viewport, but none of them slowed or changed course toward the distant crisis. The kind that mattered, he said finally. That night, Kira lay awake listening to Sam breathe beside her. His sleep was restless, filled with quiet murmurs and sudden movements. She'd never noticed this before, but now she wondered how many nights he'd struggled with dreams she couldn't see. The next morning brought worse news. The attacking forces had begun systematic bombardment of colonial settlements. Casualty estimates were climbing rapidly. The Galactic Council had officially declared the situation outside their mandate. When Kira returned home that evening, she found their apartment dark and Sam nowhere to be found. She checked their usual places, the hydroponics bay, the observation deck, the small cafe where they sometimes shared evening meals. Finally, she found him in the station's maintenance office, sitting alone at a workbench. Multiple data screens surrounded him, displaying information she didn't recognize. Star charts, shipping manifests, technical specifications for various spacecraft. Sam, she said softly. He turned, and she saw that his hands were shaking. I can't watch this happen, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Watch what happened. 40 million people dying while everyone stands by and discusses jurisdiction. Kira moved closer, studying the screens around him. The information looked like preparation for something, though she couldn't determine what. Sam, she said, her voice gentle but firm, what aren't you telling me? He looked at her for a long moment, his eyes reflecting an internal struggle she'd never witnessed before. Some things, he said finally, are better left buried. But as he said it, his hands moved to one of the data screens, pulling up what appeared to be star charts for the route to Kepler. And in that moment, Kira realized that whatever Sam had buried, the crisis in Kepler was calling it back to the surface. 3 days later, Kira woke to find Sam's side of the bed cold and empty. The chronometer showed it was still 2 hours before his usual wake time. She found him in their small storage room, quietly packing supplies into a worn travel bag she'd never seen before. Sam, she whispered, not wanting to startle him. What are you doing? He froze, a compact medical kit halfway into the bag. In the dim light, she could see other items he'd gathered, concentrated food rations, water purification tablets, a small device that looked like a communication unit but was far more advanced than anything civilians typically owned. I have to go, he said simply, not turning to face her. Go where? Kira's gills fluttered with sudden anxiety. Kepler. The word hung in the air between them. Kira moved closer, studying the contents of his bag. Everything was organized with military precision, each item chosen for maximum utility and minimum weight. This wasn't the packing of a maintenance worker planning a trip. Sam, you can't just travel to Kepler. The entire sector is blockaded. Commercial ships aren't getting through, and even if they were, what could you possibly do there? He finally turned to face her, and Kira was shocked by what she saw. Gone was the gentle, quiet man she'd married. Sam's posture was straighter, his movements crisp and purposeful. Most disturbing of all, his eyes held a cold determination that made her take an involuntary step backward. I can do what needs to be done, he said. Sam, you're a maintenance worker. I don't understand what you think you can accomplish that entire military fleets cannot. He stared at her for a long moment, and she could see an internal battle playing out behind his eyes. Finally, his shoulders sagged slightly. Sit down, Kira, he said quietly. There are things I need to tell you. They moved to their small living area, sitting across from each other on the simple furniture Sam had built by hand. Outside their window, the station hummed with its usual activity, but inside their apartment, everything felt suddenly fragile. My name is Samuel Reed, Sam began, his voice steady but distant. 3 years ago, when I told you I worked in logistics, that was true. I just didn't mention what kind of logistics. Kira waited, her heart beating faster as she sensed the magnitude of what was coming. I was a fleet commander, Sam continued. During the Proxima Wars, I was responsible for civilian evacuation operations. The Proxima Wars. Kira knew that name from history classes. The bloodiest conflict in recent galactic memory, fought across 17 star systems over resource rights and territorial disputes. Millions had died before peace was finally negotiated. You were military, she said, trying to understand. But why hide that? Many people serve in military roles. Sam's laugh was bitter and empty. I wasn't just military, Kira. I was the Ghost Admiral. The words hit her like a physical blow. The Ghost Admiral was a legend, a figure from history textbooks and war documentaries. The mysterious commander who had saved 40 million civilians during the final phase of the Proxima Wars, using outdated cargo ships and impossible tactics to evacuate entire populations ahead of advancing forces. That's not possible, Kira whispered. Sam rose and moved to a hidden panel in their wall that Kira had never noticed. Inside were data storage devices, official documentation, and a uniform jacket with insignia she recognized from military museums. Admiral Samuel Reed, he said, showing her identity documents that bore his photograph but seemed to belong to someone else entirely. 47 successful evacuation operations. 0 civilian casualties under direct command. Officially declared missing in action during the Battle of Kepler Prime. Kira stared at the documents, her mind struggling to process the information. The gentleman who grew vegetables in their hydroponics bay was one of the most celebrated military heroes in galactic history. But why, she managed. Why hide? Why disappear? Sam sat back down, suddenly looking older than his years. Do you know what 47 evacuation operations means, Kira? It means I watched 47 worlds burn. It means I spent 3 years making impossible choices about who lived and who died. It means I became very good at calculating the value of human lives in terms of cargo capacity and travel time. His voice remained steady, but Kira could see the pain behind his words. I saved 40 million people, Sam continued, but I lost pieces of myself with every operation. By the end, I couldn't sleep without seeing the faces of everyone I couldn't save. I couldn't eat without thinking about families separated in evacuation queues. I couldn't look at children without calculating how many would fit in standard transport pods. Kira reached for his hand, but he gently pulled away. The final evacuation was from Kepler Prime itself, Sam said. The government wanted me to take only essential personnel and their families. I refused. I took everyone I could, but there wasn't enough space, wasn't enough time. I had to leave 3,000 people behind. Sam, Kira whispered. I broke something inside myself that day, he continued. After we reached safety, I submitted my resignation, destroyed my personal records, and disappeared. I told myself I was done making those choices. I wanted to fix things instead of choosing who to abandon. The apartment fell silent except for the distant hum of station machinery. Kira tried to reconcile this revelation with the man she'd married, the quiet person who solved mechanical puzzles and grew tomatoes with infinite patience. So you came here, she said. To Crossroads. I came here to hide, Sam confirmed. To be nobody special. To live quietly and never again hold the power of life and death over other beings. But now Kepler is under attack again. Sam nodded grimly. The same sector where I left those 3,000 people. Where I swore I'd never return. A communication alert chimed from Sam's hidden devices. He activated the display, and Kira saw encrypted messages flooding in from sources across the galaxy. Desperate pleas from colony worlds, intelligence reports about fleet movements, and most disturbing of all, personal messages addressed to the Ghost Admiral. They know you're alive, Kira observed. Some do, Sam admitted. I've been helping where I could. Quietly. Moving supplies, sharing information, coordinating relief efforts. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would draw attention. Kira scrolled through the messages, stunned by their scope. Refugee camps requesting medical supplies. Mining colonies asking for evacuation advice. Merchant captains reporting suspicious military buildups. It was a hidden network spanning hundreds of worlds. Sam, this isn't quiet helping. This is a massive operation. It grew over time, he said defensively. People needed assistance. I couldn't ignore that. Before Kira could respond, the station's emergency alarm began blaring. The lights shifted to the amber glow of alert status, and the public address system crackled to life. All residents report to designated safety areas immediately. Unknown vessels approaching Crossroad Station. This is not a drill. Sam and Kira exchanged glances, then rushed to their window. In the distance, barely visible against the stars, dark shapes were approaching. Ships with no identifying markings, moving in military formation. It's them, Sam said quietly. The same forces attacking Kepler. How can you be sure? Sam was already moving, gathering his hidden equipment with swift efficiency. Because neutral stations don't get attacked unless someone wants to send a message. And the only message worth sending right now is that nowhere is safe. The station shuddered as the approaching ships fired warning shots across their flight path. Emergency broadcasts filled the air with instructions for evacuation procedures, but Kira could hear the panic in the announcer's voice. We need to get to the evacuation bays, Kira said, but Sam wasn't moving toward the door. Instead, he was activating communication equipment and pulling up station schematics on multiple screens. His movements were quick and confident, the careful deliberation of the maintenance worker replaced by the decisive actions of a military commander. Sam, what are you doing? Crossroads has 40,000 residents, he said without looking up from his screens. The evacuation bays can handle maybe 15,000 in the time we have before those ships reach us. Then we need to hurry to get spots. Sam finally looked at her, and Kira saw that the gentle mask had completely fallen away. This was Admiral Samuel Reed, the Ghost Admiral, the man who had saved 40 million lives. No, he said firmly. We need to find a way to save everyone. The station shuddered again as the attacking ships moved closer. Outside their window, Kira could see civilian transports beginning to launch in panicked, disorganized waves. Some ships collided in their haste to escape. Others were caught in the crossfire as the attackers began targeting fleeing vessels. This is exactly what happened at Kepler Prime, Sam said, his voice tight with memory. Chaos, panic, everyone for themselves. People die in that chaos. He activated a communication channel that bypassed the station's normal systems. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. This is Admiral Reed to all station personnel. Cease random evacuations immediately. Prepare for organized departure procedures. The channel crackled with confused responses. Some voices recognized the name and rank, others demanded identification. Through it all, Sam remained calm and focused, coordinating response efforts with the same precision Kira had seen him apply to fixing atmospheric systems. You're not hiding anymore, Kira realized. Sam looked at her one final time before turning back to his screens. 40,000 people, Kira. I can't choose who lives and dies again. This time, I save everyone or I die trying. As the attacking ships closed in and the station prepared for evacuation, Kira watched her husband transform completely. The quiet maintenance worker was gone, replaced by a legend who had decided to stop running from his past. The battle for Crossroad Station was about to begin. The first enemy torpedo struck Crossroad Station's outer hull, sending shockwaves through the massive structure. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as Sam worked at his command station, his fingers flying across multiple screens with practiced efficiency. Hull breach in Section 7, reported a voice through his communication system. Atmospheric seals are holding. Route power from recreational areas to shield generators, Sam commanded. And get me a direct line to Engineering Chief Torres. Kira watched in amazement as her husband orchestrated the station's defense. Every person who responded to his orders seemed to know exactly who he was, even though she'd never heard any of them mention the name Samuel Reed before. "How do they all know you?" she asked during a brief pause in the chaos. Sam glanced up from his screens. "Maria Torres helped me set up the hydroponics bay when I arrived. She thinks I was just interested in growing better vegetables. But every conversation we had taught me about the station's power grid and life support systems. Ben from your office runs messages between departments. He thinks he's just being helpful, but he's actually coordinated supply deliveries for refugee camps in 3-star systems." Another explosion rocked the station. Through their window, Kira could see enemy ships closing in, their weapons charging for another attack. But she also noticed something else. Civilian transports that had scattered in panic were now moving in organized formations, following specific flight paths that kept them away from the enemy's targeting systems. "You planned for this," Kira realized. "I planned for something like this," Sam corrected. "Every system I've repaired over the past 3 years, every friendship I've made, every routine maintenance task, it was all preparation for the day when people would need saving again." The communication system crackled with an incoming message from the lead enemy ship. The voice was harsh and metallic, translated through alien vocal processors. "Crossroads Station, surrender immediately. We know you harbor the criminal known as the Ghost Admiral. Deliver Samuel Reed to us, and your civilian population will be spared." Sam's hands paused over his controls. Around the station, the sounds of battle continued, weapons fire, hull stress alarms, and the controlled chaos of 40,000 people preparing to evacuate. "They came here for you," Kira whispered. "Yes," Sam admitted. "My network has been disrupting their operations for months. They need to eliminate the coordination center. Then we should evacuate. Leave the station and—" "No." Sam's voice was firm. "Evacuation means leaving people behind. It always means leaving people behind." He activated the station-wide communication system, his voice reaching every resident of Crossroads. "This is Admiral Samuel Reed. To those who know that name, you understand what it means. To those who don't, it means that today, no one gets left behind." The effect was immediate. Across the station, panic began transforming into purposeful action. Maintenance workers who had seemed like simple laborers revealed themselves as former military personnel. Cargo handlers began moving with the precision of logistics specialists. Even civilian merchants started coordinating supply distributions with military efficiency. "Sam," Kira said, staring at the organized activity visible through their window, "how many of these people are part of your network?" "More than you'd think," Sam replied, pulling up a tactical display that showed ship movements throughout local space. "But fewer than we need." The tactical display revealed the true scope of the crisis. The attack on Crossroads wasn't isolated, enemy forces were simultaneously hitting supply depots, communication relays, and refugee staging areas across 12-star systems. It was a coordinated strike designed to destroy the humanitarian network Sam had been quietly building. "This is about more than just you," Kira realized. "They're trying to eliminate everyone who's been helping people escape their attacks." Sam nodded grimly. "Which means we can't just defend Crossroads. We need to save the entire network." As if responding to his words, the communication system lit up with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Voices speaking dozens of languages reported attacks on their positions, requests for assistance, and offers of support. "Ghost Admiral, this is Captain Hayes aboard the merchant vessel Luna's Dream. We're carrying medical supplies for Kepler but we're blocked by enemy patrols. Admiral Reed, this is Colony Director Walsh from New Terra. We have refugee transports ready to launch but nowhere safe to send them. Sir, this is Commander Chen with the Independent Defense Force. We have 3 ships available for escort duty, awaiting orders." Kira listened in amazement as more voices joined the network. These weren't military communications from a formal command structure. They were ordinary people, merchants, colonists, ship captains, station workers, who had somehow been organized into a galaxy-spanning relief operation. Sam, this is incredible. How did you coordinate all of this? I didn't, Sam said, his fingers dancing across multiple screens as he processed incoming information and issued orders. It coordinated itself. I just provided information and resources when people needed them. They did the rest. The enemy ships launched another attack on the station, but this time Crossroads was ready. Shield generators that Sam had supposedly repaired during routine maintenance held strong. Defensive weapons that had been disguised as communication arrays returned fire with surprising accuracy. More importantly, ships began arriving from across local space. Not military vessels, but cargo haulers, passenger transports, and mining ships, all crewed by people who had received help from Sam's network and were now returning the favor. Captain Torres, this is Maria from engineering. Those power modifications you suggested last year? They're keeping our shields at 100%. Ghost Admiral, this is the transport ship Wanderer. We've got room for 800 passengers and we're standing by for evacuation support. Sir, this is Dock Worker Jim from Level 3. That emergency routing system you helped me design is getting civilian transports clear of the combat zone perfectly. As battle raged around Crossroads, Sam orchestrated not just the station's defense but a coordinated relief effort spanning multiple star systems. Ships that had been scattered and vulnerable began moving in organized convoys. Refugee camps received supplies and protection. Most importantly, the evacuation from Kepler sector finally began in earnest. The merchant convoy from Kepler just cleared the blockade, reported one of Sam's coordinators. 47 ships carrying 2 million civilians to safety. Independent escorts have secured the shipping lanes to Haven Colony, added another voice. Refugee transport is proceeding ahead of schedule. Kira watched her husband manage this incredible operation, understanding finally dawning on her. This wasn't the Ghost Admiral coming out of retirement to fight another war. This was something entirely new. You're not commanding a military force, she said in wonder. You're coordinating a community. Sam paused in his work to look at her. For the first time since the crisis began, his expression softened slightly. 3 years ago, I thought my only choice was between being a general or being nobody, he said. But there was a third option I never considered. I could be a neighbor. The battle for Crossroads reached its climax as the enemy forces made a final desperate assault on the station. But by now, the ships that had answered Sam's call outnumbered the attackers 3-1. More importantly, they fought not as individual vessels but as a coordinated fleet, each captain knowing exactly how their action supported the larger mission. The enemy commander, realizing the situation had shifted dramatically against them, made one last attempt to salvage their mission. Surrender, Reed, or we will destroy your precious station and everyone on it. Sam activated the emergency broadcast system one final time. His voice carried not just across Crossroads but to every ship in the growing fleet around them. To everyone listening, this is Samuel Reed. 3 years ago, I disappeared because I was tired of choosing who lived and died. Today, I want you all to understand something important. I'm not the Ghost Admiral anymore. I'm not a legend or a hero or a commander. He paused, looking directly at Kira as he continued. I'm a maintenance worker who fixes things. I'm a gardener who helps things grow. I'm a neighbor who cares about his community. And this community includes every person in this star system and every person in the next system and every person who needs help anywhere in this galaxy. The enemy ships, faced with overwhelming opposition and a population that refused to abandon their defender, finally withdrew. But the real victory was just beginning to unfold. Over the following hours, Sam's communication center became the coordinating hub for the largest civilian rescue operation in galactic history. Ships arrived from systems Kira had never heard of, crewed by beings who had received help from Sam's network over the past 3 years. The evacuation of Kepler sector, which the Galactic Council had declared impossible, was completed in 6 days. 40 million people, Sam said quietly as the final transport cleared the danger zone. Every single one of them safe. Kira found him in their apartment that evening, back in his simple work clothes, tending to the small garden he'd built by their window. The tactical displays and communication equipment had been put away, hidden once again behind innocent-looking wall panels. "So what happens now?" she asked. Sam looked up from the tomato plant he was watering. "Now I go back to work. The atmospheric recycler in Section C is still making that noise, and Mrs. Chen asked me to help her set up a new hydroponic system." "Sam," Kira said gently, "you just coordinated the rescue of 40 million people. You've built a network that spans the entire galaxy. You can't pretend to be just a maintenance worker anymore." He smiled, and it was the same gentle expression she'd fallen in love with 3 years earlier. "I'm not pretending," he said. "I really am a maintenance worker. It's just that the things I maintain are a little bigger than I let on." Through their window, Kira could see ships departing Crossroads Station, carrying supplies and passengers to destinations across known space. Each vessel was part of Sam's network, ordinary people doing extraordinary things because someone had shown them how to help each other. "You didn't marry a legend," Sam continued, moving to tend another plant. "You married someone who learned that being a legend was less important than being useful. The Ghost Admiral saved 40 million people by making impossible choices. Sam Reed is going to save billions by making it possible for everyone to choose to help." As night settled over Crossroads Station, Kira understood that she hadn't discovered her husband's hidden past. She had witnessed his chosen future. The quiet man who grew vegetables and fixed air filters was exactly who he said he was. He just happened to be growing something much larger than tomatoes, and fixing something much more important than atmospheric systems. He was growing a galaxy-wide community of people who cared for each other. And he was fixing the broken idea that ordinary individuals couldn't make an extraordinary difference. The legend of the Ghost Admiral was over. The story of Sam the maintenance worker was just beginning.